So this is a great episode today because we get to talk to you about how we live rent-free and mortgage-free in this house and how we've lived rent-free and mortgage-free for more than 10 years.
So come on in and join us for the conversation.
Hi, it's Christina.
And it's Aman.
And welcome to our YouTube channel,
Our Rich Journey. Today we're going to talk about a very special topic. We're going to talk about living rent or mortgage free and how we've been able to do it for a very long time.
So just for a little bit of background, we are living in Japan now, but we came from California. We lived in San Diego, Los Angeles, and Oakland, three of the most expensive cities in California. And when we lived there rent-free and mortgage-free.
You actually forgot one city that we lived in. Well, actually one country. We lived in Spain for free as well. Sevilla.
So we figured out how to live rent and mortgage free, and we want to share with you the way that you can do it as well.
Housing is one of your largest expenses. For Americans, housing accounts for about 30% of their budget. So let's get into 5 different ways that we've been able to live rent or mortgage free. Let's start with number 5, the resident advisor.
When we lived in Los Angeles, we were RAs, also known as resident advisors. This is a great way for students to live for free when they're attending school. But one thing to keep in mind is that it's an advantage only available to students. If you're not a student, an alternative to being an RA is being an in-house apartment manager. An in-house apartment manager basically has the same role and responsibility as an RA. You just don't need to be a student in order to qualify.
The 4th way we were able to live rent and mortgage free was when we lived in beautiful and sunny San Diego, California. San Diego is an awesome place, but the cost of living there is super expensive. When we were in San Diego, we bought a condo and were able to rent out 2 of the rooms in the condo to other people. Those 2 people, we were able to collect enough rent in order to cover our entire mortgage. One thing to keep in mind is when renting rooms to others, we were at a particular stage in our life before we had kids. I think now that's something we probably wouldn't do. But back then, we were young, we were very active, and the fact that we were never home, it wasn't a big deal to rent out 2 rooms.
And the 3rd way we lived rent and mortgage free was by downsizing. We lived in a large home and realized we didn't need all that space, so we downsized by purchasing a smaller condo. We rented out the large home, and the profits that we got from renting out the large home paid for our mortgage on the condo.
So how does this work exactly? You're probably wondering how the rent from one house paid for the mortgage on that house and the condo that we purchased. Here's the trick. The first house that we bought was a fixer-upper in a nice neighborhood. We got a great deal because of this.
To renovate the home would have cost us more than $100,000 in contractor fees, but we had a plan to do all the work ourselves, saving almost 90% of what a contractor would have charged us. We redid the kitchen, added a bathroom, added new flooring, knocked down walls, and completely landscaped the front and backyard. In the end, we turned it into a beautiful home that we lived in for 3 years. I think it's important to note, and we really want to emphasize this, that by doing the labor ourselves, finding discounted materials, and living in the home for 3 years, the home's value and market rents were rising. After 3 years, we calculated that we could get twice the amount in rent for our home. So we found another fixer-upper and repeated the same strategy. This time, the unit was smaller, so we paid a lot less for it because, again, it was a terrible unit in a great neighborhood. We renovated everything. A new kitchen, new bathroom, new flooring, again, all by ourselves. And then we moved into it and rented out the other house at a rental rate that covered both of our mortgages. In the end, we had created one beautiful house that paid us enough rent to cover the mortgage for that house and the mortgage for our condo.
Now this is a very powerful tactic that more and more people are starting to do.
What's interesting to note on this example is that we actually lived in a bigger home and we downsized into a smaller home. And for us, the simple plan was just to move to a smaller house. It meant less housing costs and more savings.
The second way we lived rent and mortgage free was actually one of my favorite ways. When we lived in Oakland, we rented a property but this particular property had a granny flat in the backyard. Now, if you don't know what a granny flat is, it's basically like another apartment. It can be detached or attached to your house. Anyway, this particular granny flat, we put that on Airbnb. And while we lived in the first house in front, our guests would stay in the back.
You don't need to be a property owner in order to use Airbnb and VRBO. And by this I mean you can actually establish an agreement with your property owner in order to rent the rooms out on Airbnb or VRBO, or even to rent the entire house out. You just have to make sure that you have this agreement with your landlord ahead of time, because some leases prohibit this.
And the number one way to live rent or mortgage free is number one because it's our favorite and probably one that we have utilized the most, is to have our company pay our rent. So we're fortunate enough to work for a company that's abroad. This company, in exchange, they pay our rent, they pay our utilities, and they give us a small allowance in addition to our salary.
When you have a family, this is a great way to live mortgage or rent free. You get to live abroad, you get to experience a completely different culture, and most importantly, you have no mortgage and no rent. Absolutely zero housing expenses.
Working abroad for a company who pays your rent is probably one of the best kept secrets. I'm so surprised that not many people have heard about this. I mean, how would you like to live in a different country and have all of your housing expenses paid for? It's amazing that not more people do this.
You may have other ideas on how to live rent or mortgage free, but the purpose of this video is really to just get you thinking about how you can live rent or mortgage free. Now remember, the average American spends 30% of their budget on housing. 30% of their budget. This is 30% that you could be saving or investing or working towards financial independence. So if you want to learn more about ways you can earn money, save money, and invest money, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and join the journey.